Started. Hello, Sheldon. How are
Hello,
you?
good evening.
Good evening. We're just
Baruch
moving
Hashem.
around.
Talking about the gas lines, huh?
Gas lines and other
Yeah,
important
yeah.
items.
My mother, I'm not sure if you're Shlomo, but my parents got the same set of dishes and glasses.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, oh, yeah.
yeah,
With Steve. Okay.
yeah.
Absolutely the same.
I think we got them too.
And did you have green stamps too? SNH green
Nice.
I
stamps?
remember those. I don't remember
Yeah.
what it, but I remember those.
I don't know.
Yes.
That was from cigarettes.
I remember those. Yeah.
Well, my parents still have the toaster oven from manufacturer's Hanover Bank.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Oh,
if you remember that one.
That's right.
Now they're doing you a favor being in business, everybody. They're doing you a favor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Franklin National.
Yeah. Okay. So today's daf is daf Yutes. Let us just give you a quick introduction to where we're at, because it's so important to the rest of the Masechta to know what we're talking about over here. You know that the moon rotates around the earth 29 and a half days. So technically, the 30th day should be Rosh Chodesh, correct? Every the 30th day should be Rosh Chodesh, the start of the next month. But hello, Louis, we just started. So the reason why the 30th day is not the new month is because there's one other thing that needs to happen. Two other things. Number one, in order for us to sanctify Rosh Chodesh, to make a day Rosh Chodesh, Eidim, witnesses, have to come to see the birth of the moon, right? The birth of the moon is when the moon was dark for a period of time and then starts up again, lighting up. So they have to say, oh, we saw the birth of the moon, and therefore that's called Molad, and they have to come to the court in Yerushalayim and in the Beis Hamikdash, and now it's the Sanhedrin that have to decide that today is Rosh Chodesh. Today is Rosh Chodesh. Once they know when it's Rosh Chodesh, there's another responsibility of Bezin is to distribute that knowledge to the entire diaspora, telling all the Jews, we made this day Rosh Chodesh. If it's a cloudy day and you could not see the new moon, so then the Rosh Chodesh was pushed off to the 31st day of the previous month. So sometimes a month will have 29 days. Sometimes a month will have 30 days. That's important to know. Another important thing, you must know this, that we're always familiar with the idea that if somebody's a pekuach nefesh, to save a life, you can desecrate the Shabbos. You can be mechal Shabbos if you're trying to save a life. But there is also another time where a person has to be mechal Shabbos. When is that? If you see the new moon, if you're living in Israel and you see the new moon, you have an obligation on Shabbos, if it's Shabbos, to get on a horse and get into a car and run to Yerushalayim and to the Beis Hamikdash. Hold on. You got me. You here? Yes. To go to Yerushalayim, to the Beis Hamikdash, to tell them that you saw the new moon. So you Michal Shabbos. When Bezdin distributes the messengers to go out and let the people know when they made the Rosh Chodesh, it was on 6 months they did that. So they did that for 6 months. They did it on 6 special months. Those shluchim are not Michal Shabbos. So in case a shliach did not reach a part of Israel in time, so for example, if you're on the very border of Israel and the shliach, the messenger from the court, did not reach you, you made 2 days yontif. So that's how it worked up until I checked it out, up until year number 359. In other words, they were always had this Bezdin thing, being Mekadesh to Chodesh, up until year 359, and then they abolished it because then Hillel made a calendar, and that calendar undid everything with Bezdin until Mashiach comes. Then we'll redo it again with the Bezdin. So that is introduction number one. Introduction number two is very simple. That during the time of the Second Temple, they wrote down a book celebrating various days that were a Yom Tov. For example, just like there's Yom Yerushalayim and Independence Day, they had very events that happened during the second Beis Hamikdash that turned into Yom Tovs where you're not allowed to fast. They made a clear declaration. These days are celebrations. Maybe you could go to work, but you couldn't fast. Not only that, you couldn't make a hesped, a eulogy, and not only that, the day before and the day after, you're not supposed to make any eulogies or fast to strengthen that national holiday. And there were many, many holidays that were written down during the time of the Second Temple. And it was written in a book called Megillas Tanis. Very good. And very important book called Megillas Tanis. Actually, if you open up Mishnayos, you may find the book called in the Mishnayos, Megillas Tanis, or it's after Masechta Tanis. That's the end of the introduction. Now we can easily understand the Gemara. We brought yesterday that during that the shluchim went out on special months to notify when you're supposed to fast in case there was a fast day in those months. And the Gemara got into a discussion that during the time of the Second Temple, the four major fasts that you fast on, which are Tish B'Av, Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, Tzom Gedalia, and Asar B'Tevis, those fasts, the Navi says that when you build the Second Temple, they were not fast anymore. They were Yom Tovs. During those days, it became a Yom Tov day. Then after the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, like we do today, we fast on those four fasts. That's the end of where we are. Now let's go into the Gemara, 15 lines from the bottom, approximately, of Yudches Amud Sheni. Yitmar, we learned. Rav and Rab Chanina had a joint opinion, and they say, Amru, they say, Batla Megillas Tanis. They nullified the book about Tanis, the book of Yom Tovim that lived in the time of the temple. So after the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, those days you're actually allowed to fast on. And those days, there's no Yom Tovs, no more celebrations of those special days. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Amri, loy batla Megillas Tanis. It was not batal. So if you open up a Megillas Tanis and they tell you Chaf Aleph Cheshvan, it was a special day in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, today you would have to skip Tachnun and you would not be able to fast. And if somebody died, you would not be able to make a hesped. So they said it was not nullified. Now, I want to point out to you that one of the major holidays that we celebrate today was written in the beginning in Megillas Tanis. It was written in that book. Which is Purim and Hanukkah. Those are holidays that we still keep today. So we'll discuss that we see that they didn't throw away the whole book. So we'll discuss that in a moment. Rav Chanina Amrei Batla Megillas Tanis. There's no more Megillas Tanis. Those Yom Tovim we don't celebrate anymore. Hachi Kama, because this is what if you follow the Navi the way it is, remember those four fasts during the Beis Hamikdash of the Second Temple, the Navi said, Bizman Sheyesh Shalom, if there's peace, that means if there's a Beis Hamikdash, Yula Sasan Simcha. Those four fasts are happy days. Tisha B'Av, Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, Tzom Gedalia, Asar B'Tevis were all happy days in the second Beis Hamikdash because you had a Beis Hamikdash. But then the Navi told us, Ein Shalom, if we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, you revert back to fasting. The Hanach Nami, those Yom Tovim that we celebrated in Megillas Tanis, which mostly occurred during the second Beis Hamikdash. I'll give you an example. Let's say the Persians made a gezerah, and then the gezerah, the decree was nullified, or the Greeks came and we were somehow saved. They made a Yom Tov. So now we don't have the Beis Hamikdash. Kihani, it's like those other fast days that were originally Yom Tov. Now they're fast days. These also were nullified. It's over. The second Beis Hamikdash is gone. And therefore, the whole Megillas Tanis book doesn't apply anymore. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Amri, loy bat Megillas Tanis. It was never nullified. We still should keep it. Hanuhu the Talin Rachman b'Binya Beis Hamikdash. Those that were in those four Tanesim, those four Yom Tovs, right, which were originally fast. That the whole reason why we turned it into a Yom Tov during the Second Temple because we had the Beis Hamikdash. Now that we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, we celebrate it as a fast day. To Aval Hanach, these remained. The Megillas Tanis really had nothing to do with the building of the Beis Hamikdash. They happened to have occurred, these special days occurred during the Second Temple, but it's not related to the building of the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore we should still keep them today. So let's see what the Gemara of Rav Kahana. Now we're going to start reading in the Megillas Tanis. again, if you open up a Masechta Tanis in the back, I think they have the Megillas Tanis. They have the language here. So if you read it, let's see. We'll ask a question. Masa v'gazru Tanis b'Chanukah belud. They made a gezerah in Lud on Hanukkah that we should fast. Some reason the Romans made an oppression against the Jews, and to nullify the oppression, it was decided by the tzibor, by the community, to fast, even though it was Hanukkah. Now, you're not supposed to fast on Hanukkah, right? It was not. You're not supposed to fast on Hanukkah, and they decided they're going to fast on Hanukkah. So, in order to prove that the community is doing wrong, the Yard Rab Lezer Rachatz, Rab Lezer went and took a swim. Rab Lezer showed Tanuk, he showed enjoyment on that day to show that we're doing wrong. Rabbi Yeshua Vesipa, Rabbi Yeshua went and took a haircut on that day. When they go to take a haircut on a day that everybody is trying to fast, they're trying to make a statement saying, you make your community, you are wrong for fasting on Hanukkah. V'amru lehem, and they told the people, go fast on what you're doing in Avera of fasting. By declaring a fast on Hanukkah, you're doing an Avera. Now you're going to have to do another fast on that fast that you did, because the fast itself was an Avera. So what do you see from there? That Hanukkah still applies B'zman hazeh, and that you're not allowed to fast on Hanukkah. Well, this is after the second Beis HaMikdash, and the Hanukkah was written in the Megillas Tanis, and yet that Yontif still applies. Why is Hanukkah any different? Rav Yosef said, Sha'ani Chanukah de'ika mitzvah. The reason why Chanukah still applies is because we have a mitzvah along with celebrating it as a holiday. There's a mitzvah to light the Chanukah neros. So therefore, that was the only exception of the Megillas Tanas that remained. That was the only Yom Tov that remained. Amalei Abaya says that still wouldn't make sense, because if the whole Megillas Tanis doesn't apply anymore, v'siftel ihi v'tibatel mitzvasa. Let the whole Megillas Tanis, let the whole Hanukkah be nullified, and you won't have a mitzvah to light Hanukkah neros, because the whole point of lighting the menorah, it was because Hanukkah is a Yom Tov. But if you said that Megillas Tanis doesn't apply anymore, then you don't have a Yom Tov. You shouldn't have a mitzvah either of lighting the menorah. So what is the reason why Hanukkah is considered the exception to all the other holidays written in Megillas Tanis? Because Hanukkah was a universal publicized nace, and if the Jews stop keeping that, it's a shame. So therefore, that was the exception to the rule that Hanukkah remains as the only holiday in that book that applies even after the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Okay. Moisiv Rav Acha Bar Huna. Rav Acha Bar Huna asked the question. Bitlase betishrei. The Gemara assumes right now that this is a story in the Megillas Tanis, and this actually occurred after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Hear this. Bitlasa b'Tishrei b'Telis ad da'arkadim and They on third day of Tishrei, they stopped writing God's name in a document. Let's say a loan document. They had a rule that they wanted you to write God's name in a document. Now, why would they do such a thing? Because Shegazru Malchus Yavin, the Greeks made a gezerah, Shmad, to convert the Jewish people. Shaloi lahaska shem shemayim al piyam. They should not say the God of Israel on their mouths. Therefore, you shouldn't have like on a loan document any reference to a God. Okay, there is no God. When the kingdom of Hashana, the Jewish kingdom during the time of Hanukkah, overpowered them, and we became victorious. The Chachamim established, in order to get the people back to becoming religious again, that when you write a document, a loan document, you have to say God's name in the document. Now, there's a problem with writing God's name in the document, because most documents end up in the garbage. But because Eis Lasas Hashem, sometimes you have to override the Torah in order to get the people to become religious. And that's the idea over there. And people would write that during the year of so and so, the Chaychin and the Kohen Gadol, who was a Kohen Gadol, and to the year of God, this is the loan document. That's how they wrote God's name in every document. Later on, after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, and we don't have the Greeks anymore, and people were writing God's name the Chachamim had a change of mind, and they wanted us people not to write God's name. The Chachamim heard about it, and they said, the machar, when the document is no longer needed because people paid the debt, so the lender is going to take the document and throw it in the garbage. And therefore, God's name ends up in the garbage. Ubitlam, so they nullified that the rule, and they asked people not to write God's name in the document. Now, people could have rejected that because they were in the habit of writing God's name in the document. So people could have said, no, we're not following that, but they did. And when the Chachamim heard that people will accept not writing God's name in the document, they made it a holiday. Now, so that means the 3rd of Tishrei, let's say there's Tishrei, Rosh Hashana is Aleph Tishrei. Technically, at that time, they had one day Rosh Hashana. Then you have the 2nd day of Tishrei, and the 3rd day of Tishrei was this particular holiday that they made. And therefore, you're not allowed to fast on that day, and you're not allowed to have hesped on that day. Now, if you want to say that Megillas Tanis doesn't exist anymore, so technically on the 3rd day of Tishrei, you actually fasted. So Kamaisa Batil, the original holiday, because the 3rd, Tzom Gedalia, during the time of the Beis HaMikdash was a Yom Tov, right? And now after the Beis HaMikdash, that Yom Tov was nullified, and now it became a fast day. So they nullified earlier Yom Tovim, Achri Niyosa and Maisifan, they're going to add a new Yom Tov. It doesn't make sense that they would make this 3rd of Tishrei a new Yom Tov if the whole Megillas Tanis was nispatel. So the Gemara says, here we're talking about Bizman Shebeis HaMikdash Chaim. At the time of the temple, that's when this whole story happened. That means during the time of the Beis HaMikdash, we were anyway celebrating the 3rd of Tishrei as a holiday because it formerly was known as Tzom Gedalia, but now they made it a double holiday. Not only it's the holiday of Tzom Gedalia, it was a holiday because people accepted not to write God's name in the document. Oh, if that's the case, now we go to the top of the page. Why did they have to make a double holiday? It's anyway a holiday during the time of the temple. It's the day that Gedalia ben Achikam was killed, and during the time of the second temple, we were already celebrating that day as a Yom Tov. Rav answered, the reason why we made it a new Yom Tov, because once you put a holiday in the Megillas Tanis, it has a new rule attached to it. What's the new rule attached to it? That it's a holiday that they want to give power to it, that you're not allowed to even fast the day before. That you're not allowed to even fast the day before on Beis Tishrei. On the 2nd day of Tishrei, you're not allowed to fast. Rosh Hashana was 1 day of Tishrei. During that time, the 2nd day of Tishrei, technically you could have fasted. But now that they made it a holiday because of the not writing God's name in a document, so the day before is now considered a day also you're not allowed to fast. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? The Gemara first asks 2 questions on that. Why are you allowed to fast on the 2nd day of Tishrei? It's the day after Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is a holiday, and isn't Rosh Chodesh like a holiday that you're not allowed to fast the day before and the day after Rosh Chodesh? Oh, isn't that true? So the Gemara says no. Rosh Chodesh d'oraisa. Rosh Chodesh is minatora a holiday. The Torah compares Rosh Chodesh like any other holiday. And therefore, you're not allowed to fast on Rosh Chodesh proper, but the day before and the day after, you're allowed to fast. We don't have to add extra stringencies on a holiday that was written in the Torah. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Hayomim ha'ela haksubim begilas ta'anis. Those days that were written in that book, Asurim, not only are they asur, right? You're not allowed to fast on those holidays, but bein lifneim, bein la'achareim, whether before that or after that, you're not allowed to fast. But Shabbos, V'Yom Tov, and regular Yom Tov, right? So, and Rosh Chodesh, Heim Asurim, they are asur. You're not allowed to fast on Shabbos. It's a holiday, right? But Lefneim v'Lachreim Mutarim. You're allowed to fast on Friday. You're allowed to fast on Sunday. So Rosh Chodesh is like that idea. Rosh Chodesh, you're allowed to fast on the day after Rosh Chodesh. If so, technically you could have fasted on Beis Tishrei. But the fact that they made Gimel Tishrei a brand new holiday, That's why you're not allowed to fast on the second day of Tishrei. And the Gemara explains, the Bryce explains, Ma Hefresh Ben Zelazah, what's the difference between a holiday that's written in the Torah, like Shabbos and Yom Tov, to a holiday that's written in the Megillas Tanis? So the Gemara says, Halolu Divrei Torah. Those are the words of the Torah. If the Torah calls it a holiday, Ein Divrei Torah Tzrichin Chizuk, it doesn't need strengthening. You don't have to make the day before and the day after Asr. You just say that day is Asr. But halalu, the ones that were written in Megillas Tanis, Divrei Sofrim, they're made up by the rabbis. The Divrei Sofrim, Tzrichin Chizuk, things that were made up by the rabbis, they had to act extra stringency. Because imagine if they said that only this is a holiday. So if people will fast the day before the holiday and the day after the holiday, people will come to say that the holiday doesn't matter. They'll fast on the holiday itself. So they went beyond the letter of the law. And when Chachamim made a holiday and they wrote it in the Megillas Tanis, they said you can't fast the day before and you can't fast the following day. And that was the idea. Because they made Gimel Tishrei a holiday written in Megillas Tanis, now Beis Tishrei becomes a fast. So the Gemara says, Beis Tishrei becomes a day you can't fast. Okay, so the Gemara asked the question, very simple. Okay, we're talking about during the time of the temple. During the time of the temple, Gimel Tishrei was considered a holiday because it was formerly known as a Tzom Gedalia. And therefore, now the Navi said, turn that into a holiday during the time of the second Beis Hamikdash. If you're turning it into a holiday during the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, it's not Shabbos, it's not Yom Tov. It's the Navi says it should be a holiday. Therefore, it's maybe the day before was already Asr already. Beis Tishrei was Asr from that time. Why do you need it to add another holiday? Beis Tishrei was prohibited because that was the Gedalia ben Achikam holiday. Amar Ravashi explained, Gedalia ben Achikam holiday was Divrei Kabbalahu, was written in the Tanakh. The Navi said, go build the second temple, and that Gedalia ben Achikam will be fast, will be turned into a holiday during the second Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, it was written in the Navi, over Divrei Kabbalah, Divrei Torah Dami. Something written in the Navi is as if it's written in the Torah, which doesn't need a chizuk, it doesn't need a strengthening. Therefore, the Chachamim said when they made up this new holiday of the not writing God's name in the document, and it came out on the same day of Gedalia ben Achikam holiday, it added a dimension that did not exist before, which is that the day before the holiday became Asr. So basically what we came out from this question and debate was we don't have a proof from that comment that the Megillas Tanis doesn't apply, because that story happened during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Our discussion concerns itself the Megillas Tanis after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, from year 70 and on. Is Megillas Tanis exist now or not? So far, we know that Hanukkah does exist, but what about the other holidays that are written there? So Mosiv Rav Tuvia Bar Matana, he asked the question. We learned in the Megillas Tanis again, Be'esrim Utmanya Beis Achas Besur Tetave Lihudah Deloyi Idim Midaraisa. On the 28th of a month came the good news to the Jewish people that they don't have to separate from the Torah, right? They don't have to remove themselves in the Torah. And Rashi explains this was the 28th of the month of Adar. What happened? What was going on during that time? Well, Shagazra Malchus Rasha, the evil kingdom. This is a euphemism for the Romans. The Romans were on top of the Jews way after the second temple was destroyed, and they made a decree, Shema, that banned religion. What did they tell the Jews? Shlo ya'asku b'Torah. You can't learn Torah. V'shlo yamula es b'neihem, and you're not allowed to give a circumcision to your children. V'shichal Shabbos, and you have to work on Shabbos. Those three things separate what a Jew and a guy is, and the Jews were forced to keep the law of the land. Ma also Yehuda ben Shamua v'chaveira. What did Yehuda, the son of Shamua, and his friends do? Again, this story happened after the second Beis Hamikdash. What did they do? How did they nullify the decree? They went to this woman. Somehow, this woman was a celebrity amongst the Roman governors at that time. and everybody knew to make her acquaintance. And they asked her, what as Jews can we do to get this decree nullified? Amr lahem, she said, "Boyu vavginu balayla." Make a demonstration at night. So they followed her directions. Holchu vavginu balayla. They made a demonstration at night outside the capital or something like that. Amru, and in the demonstration they said, "Ei Shemayim, oh my God," they said, "Lo yachech," to the Romans, "Lo yachechem anachnu, aren't we not brothers? You're from Esav, we're from Yaakov. Lo b'nei av echad anachnu, are we not? Don't we have one father, Yitzchak? Lo b'nei em achas anachnu, don't we have one mother, Rivka?" Basically, they were saying that we are somehow cousins. What are we different than any other nation and language that are under your domain, under your jurisdiction, that for us, you're making these terrible decrees, difficult decrees? I mean, you could keep Buddhism and you could keep Taoism, but you can't keep the Jewish religion. Why are we different? And because of this type of demonstration, per her advice, the Jews were able, ubitlam, they got the whole decree nullified. That day of the 28th of Adar, Asu Yom Tov, they made a Yom Tov. Now, this story happened after the second temple was destroyed. If you want to say, Batla Megillas Tanis, that Megillas Tanis doesn't exist anymore. They nullified all the previous Yom Tovs that were in time of the second base of Migdash. They're going to add new Yom Tovs that didn't exist during the time of second base of Migdash. So how could you say that? Are you going to say Hachanami, that this story happened Bisman Shebeis Hamikdash Kayim? Can this story have happened during the time of the temple? And therefore, doesn't enter our discussion, because our discussion concerns itself whether the Megillas Tanis did not exist after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. That you can't say that. For Yehuda ben Shamua, Talmidei shel Rab Meir. The protagonist of the story was this Yehuda ben Shamua. Well, he was a student of Rabbi Meir. And remember, Rabbi Meir Basahachi Hava. Rabbi Meir lived after the first temple. In fact, Rabbi Meir is a student of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva lived in year, I think, 130. The Beis Hamikdash was destroyed in year 70. So certainly the story happened after the second Beis Hamikdash. Now, how do you know this Yehuda ben Shamua was a student of Rabbi Meir? The Tanakh, we learned in the Mishnah, Kli zechucha shnikfu v'hitiv l'soichen avar Amar Shimon Yehuda ben Shamua mitame b'shim Rabbi Meir. His statement with a glass vessel that had a hole in it. It has a machlekes regarding taharas. He filled it up with lead. But the point is that Yehuda ben Shamua said in the name of his rabbi, Rabbi Meir, that it's tamei. So this Yehuda ben Shamua, who is the protagonist of our story that got the Roman decree nullified, is a student of Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir certainly lived after the second Beis Hamikdash. And they finished the Bryce of Chaman Matar, and Chaman said it's tar. So any Chanami. So from this Bryce, you see that Megillas Tanis still should exist today. That's what you see from the Baisa. So the Gemara comes to the conclusion. It says Tanoihi. It is a machlekes Tanoim. The Tanya we learned in the Baisa, those holidays were written in Megillas Tanis. They apply Bein Bisman Beis Hamikdash Kayim, Bein Bisman She'ein Beis Hamikdash Kayim. Whether the Beis Hamikdash is around, whether the Beis Hamikdash is not around, they're always there. We have holidays that you don't even realize are holidays. Asurim, and it's usher to fast in those days. It's usher to make a hesped on those days. Not only that, the day before and the day after. Divrei Meir, Rabbi Yosef Bisman Beis Hamikdash Kayim Asurim. During the time of the Beis Hamikdash, they were usher. Because it was happiness. You had the Beis Hamikdash, they kept those holidays. Ein Beis Hamikdash Kayim Mutarim. When the Beis Hamikdash is not around, there are no more holidays. You can fast on those days, and you can make hespedim, eulogies on those days. Because it's a mourning for people now. So therefore, you see clearly is machlekes Tanoim whether Megillas Tanis exists today or does not exist today. It's machlekes Tanoim. So the Gemara says v'hilkasa, the halacha what remains batlu. We don't have Megillas Tanis anymore. Then v'hilkasa like batlu, and I'll tell you the halacha is there was not nullified. We still keep Megillas Tanis. So the Gemara says kasha hilkasa al hilkasa makes no sense. You make a contradiction from one word to the next. You said first the halacha is that it's nullified, and then you said the halacha is that it was not nullified. It still exists today. Like kasha, it's not difficult. Kan b'Chanukah Purim. Purim are the only exceptions that are in Megillas Tanis that exist today, and therefore we celebrate them. Kan b'shar yamei. All the other days written in Megillas Tanis does not exist today, and therefore it's not celebrated. And even Chanukah and Purim, although they were written in Megillas Tanis, and we just learned that Megillas Tanis, you're not allowed to even fast the day before or the day after. We do fast. A person could fast Erev Chanukah and make a eulogy Erev Chanukah. In fact, we fast even before Purim on Tanis Esther. Okay, because we say that really these days were nullified and they don't exist anymore. So they're not really holidays. Imagine, though, I just thinking about it out loud. Imagine if this Megillas Tanis existed, and we have all these bunch of holidays. You wouldn't say Tachlin too often, because there must have been maybe 50 or 60 holidays written in there. And so throughout the whole year, you wouldn't say Tachnun because they will always be skipping because it's a national holiday. So the end of the story is that they will mavatal it. It doesn't exist. Mishnah said, that in Elul, the messengers went out to notify the people when Rosh Hashana is. So the Gemara says, well, then they went out again in Tishrei. After Rosh Hashanah, Nu Shluchim told you when they celebrate, when Rosh Chodesh was in Tishrei. So the Gemara asks the question: since they told you when Bezdin was Mischadesh Rosh Chodesh Elul, so why do the Shluchim have to go out on Tishrei? Why? The Chitayim, you're going to say, Dilma Ibruhu Elul, maybe they made Elul 30 days. And therefore, they didn't know. If you didn't know if Elul was 29 days or 30 days, that's why the Shluchim had to go out on Tishri again to notify whether Elul was a 30-day holiday, a 30-day month, or a 29-day month. That's not true. It can never happen. From the time of Ezra and on, Elul was never a 30-day month. They always made sure to have Adim to make sure that the Elul was only a 29-day month. Okay? Now, and therefore, if it can ever happen, so automatically you know that Elul is 29 days. If you know when Elul started, you count 29 days. The 30th day is Rosh Hashanah, and you know when Yom Kippur and Sukkot is. So why did they have to go out on Tishrei? So the Gemara says, Loi Matzini, it was not common. The Loi Itzrach, they never tried to make, they didn't have to make Elul a 30-day month. Ha Itzrach, but there was sometimes a possibility that they made Elul 30 days. They made it a 30-day month. Even if Adam came, they said, they wouldn't accept him, and they tried to make Elul a 30-day month. Now, I'll explain you why. Because in the ancient times, they didn't have refrigeration, and they did not want, let's say, Yom Kippur or Sukkot, the holiday that should follow a Shabbos. So you'll have 2 days where you can't work, because suppose somebody dies, let's say on Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, you couldn't bury him. So then Shabbos, you couldn't bury him. If Sunday was Yom Kippur, the first time you can bury him was probably Monday morning. And therefore, that body would decompose. So if they saw that would happen, they made sure to make Elul a larger month. And they would tell the Adim, and they would try to tell the Adim, Bezdin is closed, don't tell us what you saw. So therefore, since there is a possibility to exist that Elul could be a 30th day month or a 29-day, the Adim had to go back and retell the people when exactly Tishrei was, when exactly was the real day of Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara says, wait a second, if you have a reason, if normally Elul is only 29 days, then it comes out that sometimes Bezdin made Elul 30 days, but Hamikalkel Rosh Hashanah, you're going to destroy Rosh Hashanah, because most people are going to keep 1 day of Rosh Hashanah, and that will be the 30th day of Elul, because they'll think the 30th day of the Elul is the first day of Tishrei, and therefore they're not going to have the holiday of Rosh Hashanah. So why would they make the Yom Tov? Why would they make Elul larger? So in case of necessity, people are not going to keep Rosh Hashanah correctly. So they'll work on Beis Tishrei. And really, that Beis Tishrei was really Aleph Tishrei. So the answer is, Mutav Tikalka Rosh Hashanah Leiskalka Kula Ma'adis. They rather have people mess up Rosh Hashanah, keep Rosh Hashanah on the wrong day, but at least they'll have the Yom Tovim straightened out. That's why it's called Daikanami Diktoni al Tishrei. On Tishrei, they went, the Shluchim went Mipnei Takona some Mayadas to straighten out the Mayadas. In case you kept the wrong day of Rosh Hashana, now you'll keep the right day of Yom Kippur and the right day of Sukkot. But for great necessity, and in order to not run into that problem with dead bodies, with decomposing because of a 2-day holiday, or even have fresh food on a holiday because the vegetables would spoil, they separated holidays from Shabbos. Therefore, they made it a little bigger sometimes, and that caused people to keep Rosh Hashanah on the wrong day. But they rather have that than to have the Yom Tovim not correct the way it should be, and therefore they left it. That's why the Shluchim had to notify to tell them exactly when really Rosh Hashanah turned out, so you can keep correct Yom Tiv of Yom Kippur and correct Sukkot. Shema Mina. Val Kislev B'nei Chanukah. One more piece of Gemara. On Kislev, the Shluchim would go to the diaspora and tell everybody, hey, when Rosh Chodesh Kislev was, so 25 days later, you'll keep Chanukah. Val Adar Mipnei Purim. And on Adar, they left and told you when Rosh Chodesh Azar was, so you could count 14 days to celebrate Purim. So v'ilun is Abra Hashana yotzin af al Adar shem ipnei Purim like Tanu. Let's say they made 2 Adars. Now, why would they make 2 Adars? Well, you can see the problem of having 29-day months is that it'll come out that since the solar calendar is 365 days, and if you just have 30-day months of lunar months, it comes out that the seasons are going to be very different. In other words, Pesach time, which is normally supposed to be kept in the spring, the Torah says, make sure Pesach is in the springtime, will come out, and Pesach will be earlier. Pesach will be in January. And all the Pesach programs will have a problem. So therefore, during the Chumash says that you have to make those an extra Adar. Basically, it implies you have to make an extra month so that the lunar months match up with the solar calendar. So, what happens if they made an Adar Sheni? Did the Mishnah doesn't say that they sent shluchim if they made a new Adar, a second Adar, because of the Yontiv of Purim? Loikatanu. Why didn't they go out the second Adar? Masni said, the Loika Rebbe. A Mishnah must not go like Rebbe. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Rebbe Aimer, in this Abra Hashana, if they decided after, let's say, Adar Rishon, everybody knew when the first Adar was, the Shluchim came back and the Bezdin made a new Adar. Yoitzin, Rebbe says, Yoitzin af al Adar Sheni mipnei hapurim. They would go Adar Sheni mipnei hapurim because of Purim. So therefore, our Mishnah doesn't mention that case. So our Mishnah holds that even if they made an Adar Sheni, we didn't send Shluchim again. And by not sending Shluchim, right, they automatically knew that it's an Adar Sheni because they were expecting Shluchim to come because of Nisan. But now, if Shluchim messengers didn't come, they know that Bezdin made an Adar Sheni, and therefore they'll wait to the next month till the Shluchim come back and tell you when Nisan was. But so one holds that the Shluchim went out on Adar Sheni, and our Tana holds the Shluchim did not go out on Adar Sheni. What's the machlokes between Rebbe and the Tana, our Mishnah? Lema b'halkam Palgi. This is the argument. The Marsova, our Mishnah holds, Kol mitzvahs hanahagas b'sheni nahagas b'rishon. Any mitzvah that you could do in the second Adar, if you did it in the first Adar, it's okay. If you read the Megillah, you sent Shlach Monos, and you did all the things on Purim Rishon, you don't have to redo it on Purim Sheni. So according to our Mishnah, you didn't have to go out on Adar Sheni because you were already Yoitza during the first Adar you did it. Umar Sova, but Rebbe holds, Kol mitzvah hanahagas b'sheni ein nahagas b'rishon. Any mitzvah that you do on the second, that you're supposed to really do in Adar Sheni, it wouldn't work if you did it on Adar Rishon. Therefore, Rebbe said that if they made a new Adar, the Shluchim would have to notify, hey, we made a new Adar, so they wanted you to make sure to keep Purim in the right day on Adar Sheni, on Yudalad Adar Sheni. So that is the machlokes between Rebbe and our Mishnah. So the Gemara says, "Lo, you don't have to say that. The Kuli Alma, everybody will hold, like we hold today. Mitzvahs hanahagas b'sheni, the mitzvah of keeping Purim in the second Adar, ein nahagas b'rishon. You can't do that in the first Adar. If you did it in the first Adar, it doesn't work. So why didn't our Mishnah say our Mishnah say that automatically they should send new shluchim out for Adar Sheni, so we know it, so the people would know when to keep Purim during Adar Sheni. The answer is they automatically knew that, because Adar Rishon, according to this opinion, was only, they knew if it's an Adar Rishon, it had to be a 29-day month, because Bezdin will never make it more than that. How were the Adars set up when they made it 2 Adars? The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Kama Iber Shana. How big was the Adar Rishon, right? Adar Rishon. One says Lamed Yom. One says that it was a 30-day holiday, and therefore it was on the 31st day started Adar Sheni. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Chodesh. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says no. Adar Rishon is always 29 days, and on the 30th day they made Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni. So the Gemara says, what's the difference if it's a 30-day Yom Tiv, a 30-day month, or it's a 29-day month? Automatically, if I know Adar Rishon is either 29 or 30, I automatically know when Adar Sheni starts. Amar Papa, that's not always so. The one that says that that Adar Rishon was 29 days, he didn't mean it's only 29 days. He says Ratzah Chodesh, sometimes Bezdin made it 29 days. Ratzah Shloshim, sometimes Bezdin made it 30 days. Clearly, according to this opinion, since Adar Rishon could be either 29 days or 30 days, they didn't know when Adar Sheni was exactly. So that's the opinion of Rebbe. That's why you had to send new shluchim out for Adar Sheni. But according to our Mishnah, they always knew that Adar Rishon was only 30 days. It was actually a 30-day month. So therefore, on the 31st day, they started Adar Sheni. It was always that way. So they didn't need the shluchim to go out to tell you when Adar Sheni was, because our Mishnah says that our Mishnah understands that the people knew automatically when Adar Sheni starts. Let's just finish another half a minute. Hey, Rab Shimon ben Levi Mishum Kol Kedisha Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi had a tradition from the great holy congregation of Jerusalem, Ashnei Adarim, when you have 2 Adars, that they always 29 days. The 2 Adars are always 29 days. Remember, do they mean to say the Chaserin and Dinim, Malayan Layavdinim? We always make Adar Rishon 29 days or and Adar Sheni 29 days. We never make them 30 days. Yes. Hey, he said, Rab Nachman Chizda said, hey, Rab Simai b'Shem Chag Ezcharim Malachi Ashnei Adarim. That means he said, I have a tradition from the Nevi'im, back from the prophets. If you want to make Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni 30 days, you can make them Shneim Chaserim Oisim. You can make them both 29 days. Echad Mali Bechad Chaser, 130 and 129 days. Oisim. That's the way it was done in the exile. We didn't know exactly how long Adar Rishon will be, Adar Sheni. This can change. According to Rav, who again during the time of Rav, who actually lived before 359, right? Maybe in the 200s he lived. He said, and again during that time they didn't have a calendar. They always had one. The first one was a 30-day month. And the second one was always 29. Adar Rishon was 30, and the next one was 29. Until you know for sure that Bezdin, for some reason, decided to make even the first one a 29-day month. Usually you could assume that Adar Rishon was 30 days and Adar Sheni was 29 days. Okay, so it was not so clear. But according to some opinion, it was very definitive that Adar Rishon was always 29 days. So therefore, you always, or it was always 30 days. I'm sorry. Adar Rishon was always a 30-day month. Therefore, you always knew when Purim was, because Adar Sheni always started on the 31st day. And therefore, the people did not have to need shluchim to go out on Adar Sheni to let them know when Purim started.
Bernard, I have a quick question. The idea of, let's say, with Adar Sheni, then we celebrate Purim Adar Sheni. But we still do the mitzvahs that are on Adar Rishon happen to fall out on Adar Rishon. We have to do it again in Adar Sheni. Like for instance, you have a yard site, God forbid, Shtugadaf, on Adar Rishon. You have to say Kaddish again Adar Sheni. Is that because it's sort of like united together with what we do? Like for instance, Purim and everything we do is Adar Sheni. Is that the reason why we say Kaddish again for the second month?
I think the reason Adar Sheni generally is considered the real Adar. And hence Purim is celebrated in Adar Sheni, like this year. and I think a yard site, if a person is celebrating a yard site, if it was a regular year, then you would celebrate in Adar Sheni, not Adar Rishon. I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I think-
because I know that it was unclear and there was a machlok, I guess, but depending on who you asked, for instance, you should either say Kaddish again, Adar Sheni, or not. And I thought maybe this is the source because of this Gemara. I don't know.
No, well, our Gemara comes to the conclusion that everybody holds. The Gemara says the Kuli Almi, everybody holds that if you're supposed to do it in the second month, ain't no
Right.
Hagas Rishon. It will
Right.
the Kuli,
You don't do it. You don't do it.
in the first month. The only time you will do a bar mitzvah or a yard site in the first month, if the person died in an
Right.
Adar Rishon, so
Right.
then you celebrate Adar Rishon. But other
Right.
than that,
Right.
you would check. I've got to
Right.
check that. I got to check what you're saying regarding a
Yeah,
regular.
so in other words, in other words, you would do the yard site Adar Sheni and leave Adar Rishon alone.
Right. That's what I would think.
Yeah, there are some rabbis that you say you should say Kaddish twice. I'm
Oh,
pretty
wow.
sure. So if you check it out,
I'm curious to
appreciate
know
it.
what the reason is.
Yeah, I don't
I'm gonna
know.
try. Let me look that up. That's a good
Okay.
nugget of knowledge.
okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Everyone
good.
have a great Shabbos. We learned a
Great
lot
Shabbos.
today. Okay.
Thank
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.